everyone, welcome to another lecture discussion for diet and therapy subject. Okay, so I'd like to ask how's everyone? I hope everyone is doing good. I hope everyone is able to catch up with their online classes. Okay, so I've also read all your introductions in FEC you learn, and I'm glad that everyone has at least one favorite vegetable. Yeah, because I believe that vegetables are a really important component of your is a really important component of your diet. Okay, so for today or and in this video, what you will learn is about human digestion, absorption, and metabolism. Okay, so this is just like a review of your anatomy and physiology. Okay, but more on the perspective of nutrition science. Okay, so well, that's what nursing is. All roads in nursing will lead you back to your anatomy and physiology subject. So anyway, this will be very easy for you to absorb because you've learned this in your anatomy subject. So let's begin. All right, so let's first discuss the basic principles. Okay, so we have first, oops, first, food must be changed into simpler substances for absorption and then into even more simple constituents that cells can use to sustain life. Okay, so like the food that or the breakfast that you ate this morning, it has first to be transformed into simpler substances of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats in order for the body to be able to use it. And actually, there are processes involved to make that possible. Okay, so the processes involved are includes your digestion, your absorption, transport, and then your metabolism. Okay, and the organ or the system used for this process is your GI system. Okay, so the different parts of the GI tract and accessory organs are parts of the GI system work systematically together as a whole to complete the process of digestion and metabolism. Okay, and food components will travel through this system until ultimately they are absorbed and delivered to the cells or excreted as waste. Okay, so let's now proceed with your digestive system. Okay, so lo and behold, this is your digestive system. Okay, your amazing GI system, and I just like to give you a refresher of the anatomy of this system. Okay, so what organs of the digestive system does your food pass through to process your food? Okay, so for that, I will give you a mnemonic so that you can remember. Okay, so the mnemonic is um, MOS is a DJ in LA. Okay, so each capitalized letter of this mnemonic will represent an organ of your digestive system. Okay, so starting off with M. So M is for your mouth. Okay, so your mouth is located here. Okay, so what your mouth does is that it breaks up the food particles, and then after the food is broken down, the pharynx will swallow it, and it will be in your esophagus. Okay, so this is actually one way to spell your esophagus. This is the British spelling. It has an O. Okay, so I'm just gonna use that. Okay, and then after the esophagus will transports the food, it will then be in your S for your stomach. Okay, which actually churns and stores food. Okay, so this is your stomach, and then after that, the food will then be transported to your small intestine. Okay, so this is your small intestine right here. Okay, and your small intestine is actually the organ of digestion. So it completes the process of digestion. Okay, and it has three parts. Okay, so this is the three parts that I'm talking about, starting off with the D. Okay, so D is for duodenum. Okay, this one is the duodenum. So it is the first part. So the stomach actually empties here. And then we have the jejunum. Okay, jejunum. Okay, so it is the middle portion of your small intestine, and then followed by, of course, your ileum, which empties to your rectum and then down to your anus. Okay, so this is your anus. Letter, uh, I don't know, I'm sorry, not anus, but to your large intestine, which it what they call this, it empties to your large intestine, so that is the letter L right there. Okay, and in your large intestine, what happens here is that water is reabsorbed and feces is formed, and then it will then be um, exited through your anus, which is the opening for the elimination of your feces. Okay, so I hope you still remember your digestive system. So, and I hope this mnemonic helps you remember your digestive system. Okay. Okay, so at some point in our childhood, we have asked ourselves, okay, or something like this, okay, so if I am what I eat, then how does a peanut butter sandwich become me? Okay, the answer is that there are actually several processes that are involved before your peanut butter becomes you. Okay, so here are the processes that are involved, starting off with um, digestion. Okay, so digestion, and then absorption, and then in transport, and then metabolism. Okay, so let's define that one by one. Digestion is the process by which food is broken down in the gastrointestinal tract to release nutrients in forms that the body can absorb. And then absorption is the process by which nutrients are taken into the cells that line the gastrointestinal tract. And then transport is the movement of nutrients through the circulatory system from one area of the body to another. And then metabolism is the sum of vast chemical changes in the cell that ultimately could produce the materials essential for energy, tissue building, and metabolic controls. Okay, so I will discuss this one by one. Okay, so let's start off with digestion. Okay, so this is the first process there. Um, so, okay, so there are actually two components of your digestion. Um, we have your mechanical digestion, which uses gastrointestinal motility, and then you have your chemical digestion, which uses gastrointestinal secretions. Okay, and the subcomponents of your mechanical digestions would be two. We have first the muscles. Okay, so layers of smooth muscle in the GI wall interact to provide two general types of movement. Okay, so the two movements would be your muscle tone or tonic contraction. Okay, so the muscle tone and the tonic contraction is actually the reason why your um, your food doesn't flow backwards. Okay, so that is very important. And we also have the peristalsis. Okay, so as you can remember, peristalsis is the periodic muscle contraction and relaxation, which are rhythmic waves that mix the food mass, and move it forward. Okay, so that is also very important. And the second component of your mechanical digestion would be your nerves. Okay, so there are actually specific nerves that regulate muscular action along the GI tract. Okay, so that one is called your intramural nerve plexus. Okay, so they do three things. Okay, first they control the muscle tone in the wall, and then they regulate the rate and intensity of the alternating muscle contractions, and they help coordinate all the various movements in your digestive tract. Okay, so this is important as well. And then for your chemical digestions, there are four subcomponents for this one. We have the hydrochloric acid and the buffer ions. Okay, so what your hydrochloric acid does and your buffer ion does is that it helps, what do you call this? It helps produce the correct pH, which is necessary for your enzymatic activity. Okay, so this is important. And then we have your enzymes. Okay, so enzymes are proteins produced in the body and are specifically designed to break down other nutrients. Okay, so if you miss an enzyme, okay, chances are there will be like food components that you will not be able to digest. Like for instance, if you miss the enzyme lactase, okay, so what will happen is that you will be lactose intolerant. Okay, so that is important as well. And then we have water and electrolytes. Okay, so your water and electrolytes are help the products of digestion be circulated throughout the GI tract. So your water and electrolytes kind of helps the movement and in your GI system easier. And then we have the bile. Okay, so bile in the liver, it's made in the liver rather, and stored in the gallbladder. Okay, so what your bile does is that it emulsify fat into smaller pieces to expose more surface area for actions of fat splitting enzymes. Okay, so I forgot to turn on that. Okay, so that's it for the components of your digestion. Okay, so how exactly are nutrients processed in the body? Okay, so I will discuss a few of the nutrients one by one so that you will have. Okay, so let's start off with the digestion of starch and sugar. Okay, so what happens when your starch and sugar enters your mouth? Okay, so the salivary gland secretes saliva to moisten and lubricate the food, and chewing crushes and mixes it with salivary enzyme that initiates starch digestion. Okay, so the salivary enzyme responsible here would be your salivary amylase. Okay, so it converts starch into maltase. Okay, so that's the enzyme there. And then we have, if the food reaches the stomach, what happens here is that digestion of starch continues while food remains in the upper storage area of the stomach. In the lower digesting area of the stomach, hydrochloric acid and an enzyme in the stomach's juices halt the starch digestion. Okay, so no digestion of your starch and your sugar happens in your stomach. Okay, so let's now proceed with what happens in the small intestine. Okay, so in the small intestine, the pancreas produces starch digesting enzyme and releases it into the small intestine. Cells in the intestinal lining possess enzymes on their surface that fragments into simple sugars, which are then absorbed. And finally, when your starch and sugar reach your large intestine, okay, these are actually the undigested carbohydrates. They are partly broken down by your intestinal bacteria. Okay, so in the small intestine, okay, so the enzymes are responsible actually here are your pancreatic amylase, which transforms your starch into maltose, and then your maltase, which would transform your maltose into glucose, and then your lactase, which will transform your lactose into glucose and galactose. Okay, so those are the responsible enzymes here. Okay, so these are the enzymes that I have mentioned earlier, just in case you want a tabular form for it. Okay, so that's the one. And then for the digestion of fiber, okay, so what will happen in the mouth? Okay, so in the mouth, the teeth crush fiber and mixed it with saliva to moisten it for swallowing. And then in the stomach, what is that? Nothing happens here, no action at all. And then in your small intestine, the fiber binds cholesterol and some minerals. And then finally, oh, but as you can see, there's no absorption happening here, and there's no digestion happening here also, because actually no enzyme in our GI tract can break down fiber into absorbable components. Okay, so what happens is that it goes to your large intestine, and most fibers excreted with feces, okay, and some others is digested by bacteria in the large intestine. Okay, so even if your fiber will just be excreted and it is actually not absorbed, okay, fiber is still a very important component of your diet, okay, because it helps satisfies your appetite and helps the digestive tract to function effectively and eliminate waste. Okay, so that is the function of your fiber. So you cannot take it for granted. And then we have let's now proceed with the digestion of your protein. Okay, so in the mouth, what happens with your protein is that chewing crushes and softens protein rich foods and mixes them with saliva. Okay, and then in your stomach, okay, stomach acid works to uncoil protein strands to activate the stomach's digesting enzyme. Then the enzyme breaks the protein strands into smaller fragments. And then in your small intestine, enzymes of the small intestine and pancreas split protein fragments into smaller fragments or free amino acids. Enzymes on the cells of the intestinal lining break some protein fragments into free amino acids, which then are absorbed. Some protein fragments are also absorbed. And in your large intestine, oops, resident bacteria break down small amounts of undigested protein and amino acid. Any remaining residue is carried out of the body with the feces, and normally almost all protein is digested and is absorbed. Okay, so these are the enzymes responsible for your protein digestion. We have your pepsin. Okay, so pepsin is produced by your gastric glands and it digests your proteins into peptide. And then your trypsin is produced by your pancreas, and then it digests protein into peptides as well. And your peptidases, okay, will digest your peptide into amino acids. Okay, so that's the tabular form. As for the fats, okay, so this is what will happen to your fats. Okay, so in the mouth, fat-rich foods are mixed with saliva. The tongue produces traces of a fat-digesting enzyme that accomplishes some breakdown, especially of milk fats. And then in your stomach, fat tends to rise from the watery stomach fluid and foods and float on top of the mixture. Yeah, because it's lighter than water, your fat. Only a small amount of the fat is digested. Fat is also the last to leave your stomach. And then in the small intestine, the liver will secrete bile. Okay, so if you can remember, bile is the one that emulsifies the fat and readies it for enzyme action. Okay, so the pancreas produces fat digesting enzyme, okay, that is your lipase, and releases them into the small intestines to split fats into their components. Okay, so these are your fatty acids which are then absorbed. And lastly, if your fats reach your large intestines, okay, so if they have escaped absorption, what will happen is that they are carried out of the body with other waste and you will just defecate them. Okay, so once again, this is the enzyme responsible for the digestion of your lipase, okay, of your fats, because it is called the lipase and it is produced by your pancreas, and it digests fat droplets into monoglycerides and fatty acids. Okay, and lastly we have water. Okay, water. So in the mouth, Okay, so the mouth donates watery enzyme containing saliva, okay, which actually aids in the digestion of your starch. And then we have in the stomach donates acidic watery enzyme containing gastric juice. And then in the small intestine, the liver donates watery juice containing bile. The pancreas and the small intestine add watery enzyme containing juices. Pancreatic juice is also alkaline. And largely in the large intestine reabsorbs water and some minerals. Okay, so like what I've said, your water really aids um, the really aids the digestion process so that the food can easily move in your stomach. Okay, so we're now done. We're officially done with digestion. We will now proceed with your absorption. Okay, so how are our nutrients get absorbed by the body? Okay, so this is through. Okay, so how does our body absorb the nutrients? Okay, so firstly, the cells of the intestinal tract lining are arranged in sheets that poke out into millions of finger-shaped projections called your villi. Okay, so if you can remember, this is your villi. It's finger-shaped. Okay, and every cell and every villus has brush-like covering. Okay, so like that one, that is your brush-like covering. uh, Projections of tiny hair-like projections called your microvilli that can help the nutrient particle that can trap the nutrient particles. Okay, so your villus or your villi is designed this way so that the absorbing surface will become like really large or enormous. Okay, so if in fact if the folds and the villi that poke out from them were spread out flat, they would cover a third of your football field. Okay, so this is an amazing design, okay, of our body. Each villus or projection has its own capillary network and a lymph vessel, so that as nutrients move across the cells, they can immediately mingle with the body fluids. Okay, so as you can see right here, the yellow one, that is your lymph vessel, okay, and the red and the blue one, that is your capillary network. Okay, so it makes your nutrients so accessible and easily absorbed throughout your body for your body. So how is our nutrients transported? Okay, so first, after the nutrients pass through the cells of the villi, the blood and the lymph vessels transport the nutrients to their ultimate consumers, the body cells. Okay, so the lymph vessels initially transport most of the products of fat digestion and fat soluble vitamins, ultimately conveying them into large blood vessels near the heart. Okay, so this is your lymph vessels. Okay, so they are the ones who absorb your fats. Okay, and then we have the blood vessels. Okay, the blue and the red one right here, that is your blood vessels, which directly transport the products of carbohydrate and protein digestion, most vitamins and the minerals from the tract to the liver. Okay, so thanks to these two transportation systems, nutrient soon arrives at the place where it is needed. Okay. Okay, so we're done with digestion, we're done with absorption and transportation. We are now down here to metabolism. Okay, so as you can remember, your metabolism is the sum of the chemical reactions that occur within a living cell. Okay, so the mitochondrion of the cell is the work center in which all metabolic reactions take place. Okay, so if you can remember, there are actually two um, types of your metabolism. Okay, you have your catabolism, and it is the breaking down of large substances into smaller units. Okay, like for example, the breaking down stored glycogen into smaller building blocks or glucose. Okay, and that is your an example of your catabolic reaction. And then we have anabolism. Okay, so it is the opposite. It is the process by which cells build large substances from smaller particles, such as building a complex protein from a single amino acid. Okay, so just so you can remember what catabolism and anabolism are, I would like to just give you this a sort of a visual mnemonic. Okay, so for your catabolism, just remember this break dancing cat. Okay, so cat because it involves the breaking down of large substances. And then you have Anna the builder. Okay, so for anabolism, because anabolism is about building. Okay, building large substances from smaller particles. Okay, okay. Oops. Okay, so how much energy does the metabolism of our nutrients yield? Okay, so it will depend on the nutrient. Okay, so for carbohydrates, you can have 4 kilocalories per gram, and then for protein, 4 kilocalories per gram, and then for fats, 9 kilocalories per gram. Okay, so because carbohydrates, as you can see, has only 4 kilocalories per gram, and fat has 9 kilocalories per gram. Okay, so the metabolism of your glucose can yield less energy than the metabolism of fat. Okay, however, our body would prefer to use carbohydrates. Okay, carbohydrates or glucose as its primary source of energy. Protein can also be used as energy, but this is an inefficient use of protein and it results in extra nitrogen waste. Okay, so the body only breaks down protein for energy when glucose and fatty acids are in short supply. Okay, so when your body starts to break down your protein, it could actually lead to muscle atrophy, okay, and that is commonly seen among people who are malnourished, okay, so it's not a good thing. Let's proceed. Okay, so what will happen if the other okay, so how about if you um consume too much calories and so so what then will happen. Okay, so what then will happen if we consume too much calories? Okay, so if we consume too much calories, or if the amount of food consumed yields more energy than is needed to maintain voluntary and involuntary actions, the remaining energy is stored for later use in the body. Okay, so the human body is actually a highly efficient organism, and energy or kilocalories in excess of needs are not wasted and they are stored. Okay, so for your carbohydrates, the anabolic process of converting extra glucose into glycogen is called glycogenesis. And for your protein, the body uses amino acids to build functional and structural proteins as needed, and the liver maintains some free amino acids to meet rapid needs of the body. Okay, so however, protein intake above and beyond the body's requirement is broken down. Okay, so it's broken down. It's not stored as muscle. It's broken down further so that the nitrogen unit is removed and the remaining carbon um, chain can be converted to glucose or fat for storage. Okay, the conversion of amino acids to glucose is referred to as gluconeogenesis. And for your fats, okay, so lipogenesis is the term. It's the building up of triglycerides for storage in in adipose tissue of the body. When glycogen reserves are full, additional energy from carbohydrates, fat, or protein is stored as fat in adipose tissue. Okay, so this is basically the reason why when we consume too much carbohydrates and protein, we will still gain weight and become fat because they are stored as fat. Okay, so um, basically what we have talked about are anabolic reactions. Okay, so these are anabolic reactions. Your um, gluconeogenesis, we have the lipogenesis, and your glycogenesis. Okay, so this ends my discussion about this concept. Okay, the human digestion, absorption, and metabolism. If you want to read my book sources, these are my book sources. We have Williams' Basic Nutrition Dietherapy by Nick Stacy, and Nutrition Concepts and Controversies by Sizer and Whitney. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something, and see you next time. Bye.